highlighting SADAG's commitment to raising awareness, breaking stigma, and providing resources for those living with bipolar disorder. Fatima will be shedding light on this complex mental health condition and its impact on individuals, their families, and society. So we're begging you to join us as we delve into the experiences of bipolar disorder and the importance of compassion, understanding, and access to care and empowering those affected. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Fatima, and welcome to Prime Live.
Walaikum salam and shukran for having us on air today.
Sister Fatima, we kick off by asking that you share with us the importance for us to highlight this condition on a global scale.
Um, it's a very good question, I must say. I think it's so important that we create this awareness because there's so much of stigma attached to bipolar mood disorder and mental health in general. So when we have these specific awareness days, we create awareness, we educate the public about the signs, the symptoms, what to look out for. We also share important information like how to support a loved one, how to manage your mental health better. And living with bipolar can be very, very difficult. So we share important tips and tools of how to manage it on a day-to-day basis, and also to start these important conversations so that more and more people speak about their stories and share their stories, but also just uh, educating each other, which is so important.
Mhm. So, as you mentioned, there's the aspect with regards to those who have someone who's diagnosed with bipolar disorder within their immediate circles. But let's flip the focus and speak about those who actually are diagnosed. What would your advice be to someone who is hesitant to reach out for help due to the fear of stigma?
The first thing I'd like to say is that any mental illness, whether it's bipolar, depression, anything, it is so important to reach out and get the help because it's like your normal chronic illnesses. So we create this comparison where we say your depression, your bipolar mood disorder is exactly the same as being diagnosed with diabetes, like hypertension, all these chronic illnesses that you do get diagnosed with. It's totally treatable and it's manageable. And if you get the right treatment and you are compliant on your treatment, you are able to live a very, very functional life and you're able to get by on your day to day activities, which is so important to us.
Mhm.
Um, so on our side, we say it's one step towards something that is your own well-being, but at the same time, it takes a lot of bravery and strength to actually reach out for help. So we always commend the person when they do take the step, but remember, there's help out there, there's hope. All you have to do is reach out to someone, even if it's just your GP. You don't have to go to a psychiatrist and psychologist initially to get a diagnosis. So just knowing your signs and symptoms, taking it to your normal family doctor, it's more than enough to get the help you need.
Mhm. So, Sister Fatima, you mentioned the importance of reaching out when one requires assistance, and naturally, for those of us who are, observing someone who has reached out for assistance, to give them that encouragement and motivation, and help them along on that journey. Now, how important is it to reach out sooner rather than later? One is reaching out for assistance, but is there a difference between someone who allows themselves to be in a particular condition, having detected signs and symptoms, doesn't reach out for assistance, or even at times perhaps being diagnosed but doesn't take to a treatment plan, versus the person who decides to, as we would say, take the bull by the horns and champion this from the onset, the moment they become aware?
I absolutely love your question. I think you just answered the question as well. I think it is so important to get diagnosed and treated as early as possible because just like your other illnesses, again, the earlier you get treated, the better it is for treatment and for you to be able to cope better. So remember, with mental health and mental illness, when you start struggling and you struggle for over 2 to 3 weeks, know there's something going on. And when you know that there's something not okay with you for over at least 3 weeks, go and get the help you need. because that's the earlier the better. And also, you're not going further down the spiral where it's starting to impact you at work or impact you with family relationships, or it's you are able to function but you're struggling to function, but it's not as bad as what it would be if you are a few months down the line and it will take a bigger toll on your life at that point.
So you've taken us to the workplace, and let's go there. Let's discuss the connection between mental health and the workplace, especially as it relates to bipolar disorder. What are some of the aspects that perhaps as colleagues of others that we should be observant of? And also, as you mentioned, once someone is diagnosed, how do we support someone in the workplace?
So initially, firstly, I think the most important thing is educating yourself. So if you learn that a friend or a loved one or colleague has been diagnosed with bipolar mood disorder, make sure that you educate yourself, learn the signs, learn the symptoms, know what types of treatment are available, what are the resources available, because this will help you then identify when the person is going through something difficult. So, for instance, with a bipolar patient, they go through, it's almost like a roller coaster, right? So, you're going through extreme highs, and those highs include feeling, energetic and not needing to sleep, and you feel like you're on top of the world, right? And also when you speak, it's disjointed often, and it's also like it's just like incoherent thoughts at times. So when you pick up those symptoms, you know, okay, my friend or my loved one is going through a manic episode. How do I then assist them? So that's when you help them slow down. Make sure that they're taking their medication. Make sure that they are speaking to someone. Also keep in check what are they doing on a day-to-day basis. That will just by merely supporting them, it's a lot for them already. And then what happens is with this roller coaster that you're going through, then you dip down into almost like a normal feeling. So their functionality will be as normal as ours. They'll feel okay for a bit, for a while, and then they'll slowly slip into a depressive episode. When they go through the depressive episode, they'll feel extremely sad, lonely, hopeless, helpless, all those symptoms. Your eating pattern changes again, your sleeping pattern changes again. They feel very, very sluggish or irritable at times as well. And then you start picking up those symptoms. So now you know what type of episode they're going through at the moment. And that phase needs a lot more support and a lot more caring. So knowing these signs and symptoms will help you approach people better. So in the workplace, it will help you understand that maybe at this period of time, they so during your manic episode, people are very high functioning. They are able to meet tasks, they are able to come up with ideas. They will be okay when it comes to the workplace. But what happens is during the depressive phase is when they start struggling, and you'll start picking it up. So that's when you know, okay, they need that extra push, they need a bit of more support, and then you adjust yourself accordingly. It's so important that you do make the proper accommodations for the people living with bipolar at the workplace, and there's a guideline for that. So I think each workplace would have a different guideline. So make sure that there's some sort of implementation in place, but it's also nice if the person shares their diagnosis so people around them know how to deal with them during the different times.
Now, you reference having to share your diagnosis. Naturally, this requires, from the perspective of the person who's been diagnosed, a very high level of emotional intelligence, and equally so for those with whom the diagnosis is shared. It requires a high level of emotional intelligence to be able to process someone making themselves vulnerable and saying, "Hey, I need you to somewhat be my keeper. Look out for me," appreciating, as you mentioned, the two uh, phases, either the manic phase or the depressive phase, etc. In the workplace setting, naturally, there's more of a personal boundary in terms of, okay, this is the workplace setting. this would be the extent to which I could support someone. I guess yes and no. It may become a bit more challenging in the domestic setting with your living mates. So, how do friends and family living with a person who has been diagnosed with bipolar disorder respond to someone who has had this diagnosis?
Um, Firstly, you have to remember that you can't pour from an empty cup, right? So you know your loved one has been diagnosed with bipolar mood disorder, but at the same time, you also know that you are human. So have realistic outcomes from how you respond to things. Be very realistic. You don't have to overcompensate. You don't have to give extra support, or you don't have to even walk on eggshells during their depressive phase or during their manic phase. What you need to do is treat them like as you normally do. When you do that, you are able to then maintain that relationship and that boundary, but at the same time, showing them support. So when you're around your loved one and you know, okay, they have bipolar disorder, they live in with it. I know when their symptoms come up. So it also helps you then know how to respond to certain situations, but at the same time it's about keeping a routine in place for them, so knowing how to to regulate things, making sure that they get out of bed during their depressive phase, making sure that they get to work, making sure that they have some tracking system. So with bipolar disorder, we do encourage people living with bipolar to have a mood diary where it tracks your moods, it tracks that you're taking all your medication, and it has a whole lot of other helpful tools. So, what you can is make sure that the person is filling out those. So, you don't have to physically do it, but give them, empower them that they are the driving force in their treatment. And I think that's where you need to be at. And then, yes, support them, show them extra care, but don't also overburden yourself, because you need to take care of yourself as well, because it may impact on you and then it becomes a bigger problem.
Mhm, mhm. Those are very pertinent points for us to be aware of. Somewhat going back to the workspace, as you mentioned, there are guidelines that can be shared within workspaces. Would these be within the ambit of the occupational health and safety officers at work, or is it a function that's primarily linked to HR in broader corporations?
I think it's broadly around HR. So the HR would then be aware that, okay, this person has a certain disability, like how they make accommodations for people that are in wheelchairs, blind people, deaf people, the same way they can make accommodations for people with different mental illnesses. Also, being aware of it will then make you understand that, yes, at times they're going to slack, but how do we deal or work around it? People with ADHD, for instance, they can't stay focused for very long. And so what do? You can't put them in an enclosed place where you just see four walls. Give them a space where maybe they can look out into the garden, or let them work around people, and less admin but more doing work, so that they can cope better. So there's different ways that you can approach every different mental illness, but it's tailor made. Nothing ever is static in your mental health sphere at all.
So, Fatima, as we mentioned at the beginning, one of the core thrusts of SADAG is to create this level of awareness around various mental health issues. And in lieu of this, SADAG's going to be hosting a live online Ask the Expert session for World Bipolar Awareness Day. What can attendees expect to learn from the session, and how can it benefit those living with or those affected by bipolar disorder?
Our Ask the Expert sessions are so interactive and really, really interesting. So it's hosted on all our social media platforms, and all you need, there will be an expert, a psychiatrist, a psychologist. This time it is a psychiatrist, and they will be sharing helpful hints on treatment plans, on what to look out, on how to support a loved one. But at the same time, you are able to ask the questions that you may have a concern about, which is really good because then they will be able to then answer those questions, and it's all within the reach and access of what you need. So yeah, please do join. It's a very informative session. Um, Even though I'm in the field, I watch ask the experts on a weekly basis, and every single episode or session, we learn something new.
Excellent.
So we do encourage everyone to join, and hopefully it will help in some way.
So we've covered the way in terms of all the social media platforms for SADAG. Maybe just as a quick recap and in closing for our viewership, the when, I guess, would be an important element. So when do the Ask the Expert sessions take place?
The Ask the Expert sessions take place on a Friday at 1 p.m. However, we do put the recording online on across all platforms again. So if you want to watch the recording, and I know it's usually during Salah time, which is difficult, especially for me, I'm always watching it recorded. Watch it recorded, leave a comment in the sections, and someone will respond to you with an answer to the question that you have. So don't worry, even though you're watching it delayed, someone will definitely get back to you.
Jazakumullah khairan, Sister Fatima, for your time in terms of outlining for us the Ask the Expert session that will be taking place and takes place every Friday around different mental health challenges, particular focus at the moment surrounding World Bipolar Awareness Day. And viewers, as Sister Fatima mentioned, if you happen to be observing Salah at the time between 12 and 2 and the sessions taking place at 1, you can always revisit the recordings and you can always hit them up in the comments and someone will definitely get back to you. Beloved viewers, we're going to take a quick break. When we're back, we're going to speak about halal hangover. To stay with us.